What's up, Nova Nation, and welcome to Cats on the Court. I'm your host, Victoria Newsom.
I'm David Shapansky.
And I'm Stephen Kane.
And we have a lot to get into with Villanova men's hoops. First, we're thinking about Thanksgiving. It's coming around the corner. You got your turkey, you got your family around. But we also have Villanova basketball. So the day before, on that Wednesday, they take on Rider. What are the expectations there? And then that next Tuesday, they play against Cincinnati, which will be a big game to see.
Well, great to be back for another episode, guys. Feels great. And we could spend, I feel like just a good 10 minutes talking about favorite Thanksgiving side dishes, but we'll save that for everybody. Talk about Villanova men's basketball. Great question, Victoria. Heading into this Thanksgiving break, I feel pretty optimistic for Villanova, to be honest, maybe more than I should. The Wildcats, they looked really good against Penn. Hopefully the transfers are starting to finally get going and into this lineup well. But you look at their losses, right? The loss to Columbia, as well as the loss against Virginia and St. Joe's. All three of those losses, they had really the same issues, right? Turning the basketball over a whole lot, struggling three-point defense. It looked much better against Penn, but Penn is also, in the Ivy League. They're not the best team, let's be honest here. So Villanova, I think they still have a lot to prove. But for the Cats heading into the Rider game, it's a game that they should win pretty easily. And the Cincinnati game, I think it's all about just staying competitive. I know that Steve will talk about it in a little bit. If Villanova can find a way to keep that game close heading into halftime, maybe down by just 2 or 3 points, and then maybe losing by no more than maybe 8 or 10, keeping that game in single digits, I think that's great for this Villanova team. Unfortunately, they're kind of at a point where, they can't really suffer to lose another game, to be honest. But I like where the Wildcats are right now, and hopefully they can build. They have some time to practice, of course, since the game against Penn. Hopefully they can build off of that victory.
Yeah, and to add to that, that point you made, Dave, it's very true. The key to keeping that game, particularly against Cincinnati, close is through your defense, right? Think of last year, Villanova, they almost beat UConn and Marquette. Big reason why was because their defense really showed up in those big moments, made it difficult for opposing offenses to score. But overall, this Villanova team, completely agree with what you said. The turnovers have been an issue. 3-point defense has been pretty bad, right? But it has gotten, a little bit better, right? They did well against Penn. But also the transition defense. We've seen some offenses that like to run a little up-tempo. Villanova, they'll commit turnovers, and then they'll be a little bit sloppy getting back on defense. So if they can clean those mistakes up, they should get better. This defense was really good last year. And again, that Penn game, I know it was against Penn. It was only a quad 4 win. The defense looked a lot better. The switching was a lot better. Coach Neptune talked about that, like the foot quickness. Everyone was very alert. So you have to feel, pretty good about Villanova. But we'll see. Still, a couple games left in the non-conference schedule.
And I know that this year, those mistakes you're talking about, the turnovers, what is something you're looking forward to seeing change as we move into these games? And also, who has left that good impression on you? And then who has kind of disappointed you in not playing as well as you might have expected?
Well, I think the defense is really the big key. Steve just talked about it in the game, that they're going to play against Maryland coming up as well as Rider. But the biggest key for Villanova is just getting their defense back because their offense has actually been pretty good. They're averaging in the mid-high 70s when you look at points per game. And I know that some of those numbers are inflated with the wins over NJIT and Penn where they scored a lot of points. But I completely agree with Steve. If this defense is able to get back to the level that Coach Neptune, and you have to remember, Coach Neptune is really a defensive coach. He's had this defensive unit playing really well over the past few years, so I'm excited to see that. And I think they're getting closer, which is key. Biggest kind of positive for me so far this season for Villanova. I know it's tough to say that Eric Dixon is really such a surprise of how well he's played because, we knew how good he was going to be coming into this year, but he's averaging over 20 points per game, around 22, 23, and that number was even a little higher prior to the game against Penn where he only played 30 minutes and scored over 20 points. And he's been playing around 38 minutes per game, to be honest. So I think Dixon, just how many points he scored. He scored 20 points in all the games that he's played this year, all 4. I don't want to say that's a huge surprise, but if Villanova can get him to scoring more than 20 points against Big East competition, that is huge for them moving forward. And disappointment, just to kind of be quick, I think it has to be Jordan Longino for Villanova. Still averaging around 10 points per game, but he's taken a lot of shots to get those 10 points per game, and that's the biggest concern for me. Longino, of course, is a co-captain. There's still a lot of time for him to get better as the season goes on, but for Villanova, I think they would like to see a lot more from Jordan Longino. Overall making, being more efficient at taking shots and just in a lot of different categories as well.
Yeah, quickly before I move to my big surprise and disappointment of Eric Dixon, you could probably argue it's very early, one of the best power forwards in the entire country with the numbers he's putting up. But for me, my biggest surprise, I think it's Jameer Brickus. I think he's been just so solid, especially on the defensive end. I'll admit it, right? I was a little bit worried about his size, being under 6 feet tall, and you hear the stories about him being tenacious on defense, and he was great at LaSalle, but again, moving to Villanova and playing all these these top power conference opponents. You were maybe just a little bit concerned with the three-point shooting translate. You knew he was going to be a good facilitator. I mean, he had a ton of assists. He had an 8-to-1 assist-to-turnover ratio in that Penn game, and he's had a boatload of assists in a bunch of other games. But what's really impressed me is the scoring. I mean, that St. Joe's game, it was a tough loss, but the two bright spots were Eric Dixon and Jameer Brickus. There were times where he just put the team on his back and just made a couple step-back threes on the road. I mean, he definitely has that dog in him. He was really solid, just going and getting a bucket, right? Because him being a good facilitator really unlocks this offense, but you also need to be able to score in your own right, and Jameer Brickus has done that so far. And then disappointment, I mean, I'm confident that he'll bounce back, but right now I think it's Enoch Boakye. I mean, there's just been some performances. He hasn't been great, right? That St. Joe's game, I mean, he played less than 10 minutes, 2 early fouls, no points. I mean, you can't have that from, your primary starting 5, right? Your center right next to Eric Dixon in the front court. The Virginia game, he had a lot of turnovers, right? Even the free throw shooting at times when he gets to the free throw line, he struggled to make those free throws and really embrace the whole making free throws part of the Villanova culture. So, but I'm confident he'll get back to it. I mean, he's rebounded the ball well. He's looked a little bit better defensively with his positioning. So, I mean, I am confident that he'll bounce back. He looked really good, especially as the season went on last year in Fresno State. So I feel like he'll get better as the season goes on.
And just one more thing to add really quickly here. I mean, Josiah Mosley, Chris Parker, I think they both deserve shout-outs.
Yeah.
They're both averaging around 4 points per game. Mosley, a true freshman. I liked what he's provided offensively and defensively. And Parker didn't play last year with Alabama. He redshirted in his freshman year, so really his first taste at collegiate basketball. And he's doing a pretty good job. I mean, he's playing a good amount of minutes. He provides that spark as well. Villanova's had trouble with bench points this season, but I think a lot of it has just been the inconsistency. And it's hard to depend on, really two freshmen when you look at it, providing a whole lot of consistency and being able to score, 8-9 points every single game. It's just not realistic, especially game 5, game 6 of the season. But those two guys, I think they played really hard and they deserve a lot of credit for it.
Yeah, and they have a lot of shoes to fill. I mean, looking up to those senior guys on the team
Absolutely.
that they really have to push for and provide that energy on the court. And we are excited to see it throughout the season. And now it's time for our stat of the week presented to you by Nathan. So come on in.
Thank you, Victoria, and welcome back, viewers, to the stat of the week for the men's basketball team. I am going to be focusing today from the big win against Penn on our three-point shooting. The Cats made 18 of them, which is tied for the second best in school history. It was fantastic across the board. Eric Dixon was 4 for 5. Jameer Brickus was 4 for 4. And Wooga Poplar was 5 for 8 and ended up with 19 points in that game. And I know the three-point shooting will not be as good as 60% all year, but it was a big plus for the Cats in terms of getting a big win over the Quakers. And that is your stat of the week.
Now let's hear from Kyle Neptune about Villanova men's hoops updates this week.
I think we've had an up and down season so far. We got a lot of new guys, and we're, mending them together. But our goal is to be the best team we can be by the end of the season. So we still have time to reach our goal.
And Thanksgiving is around the corner. I know I love a good Thanksgiving meal. It's what I look forward to most when going home. So what do you guys like to eat for Thanksgiving? A dish, a dessert? What is your go-to? We'll start with Nathan.
I'd have to go with sweet potato casserole. It's more underrated side in the grand scheme of Thanksgiving, but you have the marshmallows on top. The texture can be kind of off-putting for some people, but I think it's a true classic.
Yeah, and then for me, I mean, I'll probably go with a simple answer. That was a really good answer, Nathan. I'm gonna go with something more general. I'm just gonna go with stuffing. I think the stuffing it's always there. It's dependable. It's like Eric Dixon in a way. It's just it always shows up. It's very consistent. I will say though, it isn't like there haven't been a ton of times where you eat it and you think, oh my God, this is the best thing I've ever had. But it always like shows up. It's a consistent 8 out of 10, so I'd go with stuffing.
That's really good. A great segue, too, by the way, back to basketball.
Yeah.
For me, I'm going to go with the dessert. I'll say pecan pie. I love pecan pie. I mean, pumpkin pie is great, don't get me wrong. But pecan pie is definitely, I mean, like Steve said, it's consistent. My aunt makes it. I think she makes it the best. So pecan pie for me.
That's awesome. I mean, I'm a pumpkin pie person
Okay.
myself.
Can't go wrong.
I love that. And then also for me, I do like lobster mac and cheese. My mom makes the best lobster mac. I always have it. It's like great with like breadcrumbs on it and everything. And then obviously turkey and gravy. You can't go wrong with that. So.
Well, I'm waiting for the invite to your house for the lobster mac and cheese.
You guys are all
That's
invited.
fancy.
That's really good. But yeah, so that's our wrap. And anything else you want to add?
Go Cats!
Go
Go
Cats!
Cats.